The Center for the Promotion of Private Enterprise in Nigeria has released commentary on Nigeria's 2022 fiscal policy measures. Titled 2022 Fiscal Policy Measures Upsides and Downsides, the CPPE looked at measures approved for implementation effective April 1st that impact the ECOWAS external tariff, excise duties on non-alcoholic beverages, cigarettes and tobacco products and telecommunication services, and import duty concessions on medical supplies for COVID intervention measures. Joining us to discuss further is Dr. Muda Yusuf, CEO of the Center for the Promotion of Private Enterprise. Good morning, sir. Thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate you coming on. So, yes, I guess you're the best person to talk to take us through these fiscal measures and your thoughts on how they can impact things for the Nigerian economy and ECOWAS, I guess, going forward.
Yeah, thank you very much, Rotus. Now, most times, the attention and focus of many players in the economy are always on the budget. That is the appropriation. But for those who are investors, I think fiscal policy measures are even more important. Because if you look at the totality of the Nigerian economy, valued at maybe over close to 150 trillion naira, the private sector accounts for over 80% of that. And for that to happen, you need the appropriate fiscal policy environment. So these fiscal policy measures has far-reaching implications for investment and for investors, and for the capacity of the economy to create jobs. That is why it is important that we give a lot more attention to the fiscal policy measures of government. Of course, the one that has just been released just a week ago or so has three major components. We have the supplementary protection measures, which includes the import adjustment tax. The import adjustment tax are some of the protection measures to support the domestic industries, and it imposes a wide range of additional levies on imported items. And the whole idea is to protect domestic industries. Then we have the import prohibition list. Of course, again, this is about protecting domestic industries, and we have quite a long list of items that are there that will prevail, at least in this financial year. Then we have what you call the national list. The national list is a list of items with concessional import duty. You know, some of them are zero duty, some of them are 5% duty, some of them 10%. Again, the idea is to allow those who are producing in the economy to have access to cheaper imports in terms of their inputs. So this is the whole idea of this, what you call this supplementary measures that are contained in the fiscal policy measures. And of course, we have the excise duty, which has been a rather contentious issue. Quite a number of players, particularly manufacturers, have complained about the need to suspend the whole idea of imposing excise duty on some selected products. But the government has gone ahead, in spite of all these pleas by the manufacturers and key stakeholders, to impose this excise duty. So this, again, is contained in this fiscal policy measure. Then, of course, there is a very generous import duty concession and tax concession on medical supplies, particularly those that are focused on COVID intervention measures. Again, that is a welcome development. So the important thing here is that as investors, issues of policy are very, very critical, are even more important to investors than issues of appropriation. Appropriation is about spending money. Policy and fiscal policy is about investment. It's about investing. And if we get it wrong with our fiscal policy measures, it can make our the investment environment and the prospects of the economy to grow. So that is why it is very important for us to underscore the importance of these fiscal policy measures. Having said that, the issue of timing is very important. These fiscal measures are just being released in April. Ideally, in order to reduce the uncertainty in the investment environment, the fiscal measures should be coming up in January. Just as you are having the Appropriation Act, it would be nice to have the fiscal policy measures alongside even the the Finance Act, so that all the key policy instruments or the policy frameworks that will govern investment are available to investors right from January every year. So my appeal is that going forward, we should be making these fiscal policy measures available right from January. Secondly, we have a recurring issue around issues of the fiscal, particularly the import prohibition items and the foreign exchange exclusion list. It has been presenting a whole lot of conflicts, contradictions in the investment space, particularly in the trade policy arena. Whereas in the fiscal policy documents, there are items that are listed there as being under import prohibition. Then we have another parallel list, which is the foreign exchange exclusion list of the CBN. In many of these areas, there are a lot of contradictions and conflicts. Because if you get to the ports, these items are not under import prohibition, so you can import them. But if you want to process your Form M, these items are not eligible for Form M or even foreign exchange. So there's a contradiction there, and we'd like the government to resolve this contradiction in order to minimize the disruptive effect it is having on trade. I'm talking here about the fiscal policy of government as released by the Finance Ministry and the foreign exchange exclusion list as prepared and released by the Central Bank of Nigeria. It is important that we reconcile all of this. Then, of course, there is the issue of the excise duty. Now, these are not the best of times for manufacturers across all sectors. And that is why the manufacturers, particularly the Manufacturers Association, have pleaded with governments that in the interest of ability to create jobs, in the interest of competitiveness of our domestic manufacturing, we should suspend excise duty, at least for now. Look at what is happening with respect to energy costs and the implication for domestic production. Look at what is happening to exchange rate depreciation and the implication for the cost of production. Look at what is happening to liquidity in the forex market and the implication for cost of production. Then we have the issues of transportation costs. So all of these pressures are enormous. They are big enough. There are enough trouble for those who are in manufacturing. So that is why when this policy was now released, and we still see that the government has gone ahead to still impose excise duty on some items, we feel that that is not responsive enough. We expect that, because another risk that this one poses is that within ECOWAS, if your domestic production cost is higher, your prices will be higher. And if you are not careful, some of these ECOWAS products coming from ECOWAS sub-region will come into the Nigerian market and reduce the market share of domestic manufacturers. These are some of the challenges that this imposition of excise duty poses on our economy. And now if you expand that logic even to the issue of the African Continental Free Trade Area, it poses the same challenge. Because the higher the cost of your domestic production, the more vulnerable our domestic manufacturing firms will be. So these are some of the challenges that we see. Then, of course, the medicals, we welcome that because access to medical care in Nigeria is extremely very difficult. It's extremely very expensive. Our health insurance scheme is very weak. A lot of people are paying out of pocket. So the best the government can do is to ensure that for manufacturing items or for medical items that are not available locally, government should reduce the import duty, they should waive the VAT, which is what has happened under this fiscal policy, and we must commend the government for that. But we are being told that this will last only until December. My appeal is that this should go beyond December, because the cost of access to medical care in Nigeria is very prohibitive. And we'll make it worse if we begin to impose import duty on items that are not produced locally. So these are some of the issues that I think one should address when we address this fiscal policy measures that have just been released.
Very, very in-depth, Dr. Muda Yusuf. Now, we only have a minute to go. The only question I have for you, very quickly, on a minute, there's a new administration coming in 2023. So is this going to be continued? What are your thoughts on this being carried through? Very quickly, in under a minute.
No, it's going to be continued. because this is a fiscal policy measure, and some of them within the framework of the ECOWAS CET, and it's going to be it's a 5-year policy tariff regime. I think 2022 to 2027. That is what it is. Unless we have on a yearly basis this kind of adjustments that come every year to tinker with some of these components of fiscal policies, particularly the tariff and import prohibition. So it's something that will continue. After all, government is a continuum, and we expect that these policies will also continue after this administration.
Fantastic. Dr. Muda Yusuf, CEO for the Center for the Promotion of Private Enterprise, we appreciate your time on the Global Business Report. Thank you so much.